being entirely honest with you. I apologize for not revealing my true feelings. I apologize, sir, for not telling you sooner that you're a degenerate, sadistic old man. And you can go to hell before I apologize.
Just like crack, the first hit is free, because now Chris is jonesing for some Kubrick. Because we're talking movies, we're talking Paths of Glory, starring Kirk Douglas, Ralph Meeker, and George McCready, written by Calder William Hand, Jim Thomason, and Stanley Kubrick. And you guessed it, it was directed by Stanley Kubrick. I'm not afraid of dying tomorrow, only of getting killed, Chris.
Gentlemen of the court, there are times that I'm ashamed to be a member of the human race, and this is one such occasion. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? By the time you're listening to this, it will be the 11th of November, which here in Canada is Remembrance Day. That's the day that we celebrate the armistice and the end of World War I, which was the 11th month, at the 11th day of the 11th hour. So sticking with the tradition that we started last year, we are doing an anti-war film from Stanley Kubrick, Paths of Glory. Scott, why don't you take us away? What do you think?
All right, so we're gonna be playing some hot potato here, because after 4 weeks of hearing that I'm the horror expert, ladies and gentlemen of the audience, I'd like to pass this to our military aficionado, Chris. Why did I watch this movie?
Thanks. I mean, yes, I spent some time in the military. My great grandfather was, fought in the First World War. So I'll do my part when it comes to this film. So obviously it's a World War I film and it's an anti-war film. Stanley Kubrick has kind of like three films that distinctively stand out as anti-war films. Paths of Glory, Dr. Strangelove, and obviously Full Metal Jacket, both kind of touching on different aspects of anti-war. Dr. Strangelove's obviously like extremely farcical and the like ridiculousness of command. Full Metal Jacket just talking about like the sheer insanity of training troops and then like what happens when they deploy. But I would say that, Paths of Glory talks a lot about kind of like the uselessness of command, especially in the First World War, how like objectives are so arbitrary, how the lives of the men that are sent off to, take in this respect, the anthill, were just kind of like brushed aside. Like it was irrelevant. What mattered was the greater glory of the flag, and more importantly, the officers in charge. So, first look, Scott, what's your takeaway? And then, like you said, we can play some hot potato back and forth.
Yeah, like to me, I don't get how this is an anti-war film.
Okay, cool. Yeah, give me your perspective, and then I'll try and push back on them.
Well, yeah, like pretty much it was, you saw their battle or their mission they were supposed to achieve that they didn't achieve because, Gal Gadot was not there to wear the Wonder Woman outfit and walk across no man's land. And then it was this trial for, I still don't get why this trial, like even plot wise, I don't get why this trial was done, or even like, I'll say A Few Good Men had a way better fucking trial than this one, which was like prosecution one line, the accused one line, and then Kirk Douglas had one line, and then it was like the next guy up. So I'm like, I didn't understand what the fuck the point of the trial was.
Okay, so I will unpack some of that stuff. So the fact that what makes it an anti-war film? Hey, that's a great question. So there are films that glorify war, right? There are ones where there's great heroes and they leap onto parapets or over trenches. There's little carnage. there's no real loss. You know, your side dominates. I mean, some of this is if you think of like, you know, kind of like a John Wayne style hero, kicking ass and taking names. So there's none of this. There's none of this in Paths of Glory.
I will.
Go ahead.
How is Kirk Douglas not that John Wayne?
So Kirk Douglas is basically doing just the basic role that an officer would have done, leading his troops in the battle. But they did not win the battle. They take heavy casualties. They retreat. You know, they almost have their own positions fired on by their own artillery. So like there's nothing glorious about what's happening. Guys are just getting like mowed down everywhere. So, and, you know, I'm going to just talk about a bit of the filmmaking. So one of the things that Kubrick does really well, so first off, it's shot in black and white, which gives it that kind of newsreel feel, like almost like you're watching a documentary, like you're in the trenches with them. And he uses POV in the trenches. So the trench walls are extending up and you're basically going through and the troops are looking at you as you're basically Kirk Douglas's character, Colonel Dax. And so they're watching you and they're, you know, they're coming to attention or whatever. And so you get that kind of claustrophobic feel of the walls of the trench kind of reaching up around you, and even the bodies of the living troops and stuff really in close proximity. And then he juxtaposes that, right? He contrasts that with these really nice, big, wide shots of like the almost like palatial living that the senior officers, like the generals and stuff, like they're basically in palaces. And they're, you know, drinking cognac and having champagne, and I mean, there's a gala, right? Like they're at like a fancy dress gala right after this like battle has happened, where these guys got sent off to their own death. So, so that's kind of like where the anti-war sentiment talks about, just in some really broad.
Yeah,
terms.
but like in terms of like, I think Douglas's character was played kind of like a Superman. Because if you look at that battle when he's leading it, the artillery or whatever comes, the 15 minutes are done. He then climbs the ladder. Then he's the only one at top. You figure the German side would have shot him by then. Then he has the referee whistle and he's just blowing it. So now the German side should know where he is to blow him up. And then he storms it with a pistol while everybody else has a rifle.
So that's actually that's how ridiculous the charges were during the First World War. So, and again, not to get too much into like military tactics and strategy, but like the artillery has now killed or got the Germans under heavy cover. That's the whole point, right? Soften up the target, but that's why they didn't fire longer, right? Because they don't want the German artillery to be able to zero in on their artillery positions. So they soften up the targets and then basically get ready to go over the top. The whistles get blown, up the ladder you go, and then it's like a sprint as hard as you can into those other lines, right? It was the fucking stupidest concept in warfare. Like, there's a reason why it was like the war that was supposed to end all wars, obviously until the fucking second one and the, you know, all the other bullshit that we've done since then.
Because you know everybody loves a sequel.
Yeah, everyone loves the sequel. So this film is actually based on a true events. So the Suicidal Corporal's affair happened at near the end of the First World War. 4 corporals in the French army were shot by firing squad as an example to the rest of their companies because of like cowardice in the face of the enemy. And I don't have enough information on that specific affair of whether it was picked at random or they were actually themselves cowards. But it is considered a black mark in like French military justice that it wasn't appropriate. So that's where that comes from. The book is based on Paths of Glory by Humphrey Cobb, who's an Italian-born Canadian-American screenwriter and novelist. So he was born in Europe, moved to the United States. Then at 17, he joined the Canadian Army in Montreal, went to Europe and fought in the First World War for 3 years before coming back and then obviously like writing his book and stuff like that. So this book is written by a veteran about a real event. And then it was actually turned into a screenplay or I guess a stage play by Sidney Howard, who was also a World War I veteran, who is the scriptwriter for Gone with the Wind. So, I mean, it's pretty it's as accurate as you're going to get for that kind of time period. I mean, this thing was banned in multiple countries for a very long period of time because of its anti-war sentiment. So I don't know. Did I answer your questions there? I feel like I rambled on for a long period of time, which is kind of typical of me.
I was going to say that's what our podcast is all about, is your ramblings.
And I managed to get a Canadian heritage moment in there. So
yeah, I'll say in terms of characters, I enjoyed. Plots, I enjoyed. I enjoyed the. I guess he. I'm assuming he's like the lead guy, the General George Brulard.
are you talking like the general that's with the scar on his face?
No, the other guy.
Oh, the top general.
Yeah, like the Machiavellian guy of the whole movie, where he literally talks the other general into doing it when the guy with the scar is like, I don't want to do it. And he literally like reverse psychologies the shit out of him. And
I mean, I don't want to say you're getting a promotion, and I don't want it to have any bearing on that promotion, but you know,
or another star, because you deserve it. And then he's like, all right, let's do this. And then same thing, right? Once it didn't go through and he knows that it's not going to go well, he literally dumps the general with the scar, like the Paul general, and then starts working on Kirk Douglas, like, you're going to get a promotion. And then when that doesn't go well, you have the ending of the movie where it's like, the general just said, you guys got to go back on the front line. So literally just wiping out everybody that was there, right?
So that's actually a great, so my quote this week is from Michael Williamson from the Chicago Tribune. Both a terrifying, grim look at the battle and an excruciating, tense courtroom thriller. Together, it's a devastating indictment of war as conducted by opportunists and liars. So exactly what you're talking about, like, whatever it takes to get this battle done. Oh, you don't want to play fucking ball? Fine. Back in the trenches you go. Next, moving on, because I'm going back to champagne and caviar anyway. And that's why actually the courtroom scene, I agree. I love the courtroom scene in A Few Good Men, but I mean, it's essentially, that's the entire stage play or the film. That's the premise, is the lead up to that, is that quickness and that like ridiculousness of that courtroom scene just shows how little they care about justice. They're like, these people are not getting a trial. It's a fucking kangaroo court. The guilty verdict is basically already there. Like, every defense that Kirk Douglas raised, he's like, no, can't do that. Stop wasting our time. Then, by the way, here's some duck. Have a great day, because we're gonna fucking shoot you tomorrow. Or, sorry, Buddy gets almost knocked out. Well, he gets knocked out, gets almost killed, and they're like, just make sure you wake him up before we shoot him. Like, would they say something like nothing energizes like watching people getting killed? You know what I mean? So
yeah, that was the thing. Like, for me watching it, and this was my first time ever watching it, I can honestly say I will never watch it again. But
did you like it as a film? Like, just as was there anything enjoyable about it?
I would say it's okay.
Okay.
Right? Like, it's not.
What did you like?
I'm not. That's the thing. This movie made me 100% indifferent, right? Like, it didn't, like, knowing where Kubrick goes, right?
Sure.
Like, the films he's going to make, you can see that this is early in his career, right? Where he's still kind of honing his craft, where like the film we did, The Shining, that we did before, right? Where, everything was meticulous, everything from the dialogue to this, right? And I think having him early in his career and having a lot other screenwriters and stuff, like, having their say on it, where, and I don't know if that's what it is, like, it doesn't, like, it feels like it's like, this is gonna sound wrong,
Paths of Glory is like less a Kubrick film than, say, The Shining.
Yeah, but also it's more like, this is Kubrick doing a studio film. This isn't a Kubrick film.
That's right.
This is him just in the studio system, right? So
yes,
here
he's just the director.
I'm just gonna string these around because in 2 more years I got to do Spartacus. So I got to keep Kirk Douglas happy. So let's just get this going kind of thing. After that, I got to do 2001. But I think like any early director, right? Like knowing how he ended up in terms of his style and seeing it here, like you see the germ, you see the origin of it, but it's like in my head, I'm like, okay, if this was made 10 years later, it would have been a 100% different film, right?
Yeah, it would be Full Metal Jacket is what it would have been. But you can, and I agree with you, but you can see that genesis. Like, you can already see how he likes to move the camera, right? Like the camera's always moving, or it's not always moving, but like he likes to get in on those POV shots. It's moving through the trenches. Like you said, you can look later and go, that's where it starts, right? Like that's where he starts to play with his control.
Your example, 100% of him, not even him walking, the other general walking the trenches and saying, "Hello, sir, soldier, are you married? Hello, soldier." He's shell shocked. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
With that like little voice he did. But when you're doing that scene, you can literally juxtapose it to Danny riding his little tricycle going through the overlook, right? Because it's close enough and it moves fluently with the movements that they're doing, right? So you can see how it works. And don't get me wrong, he is an amazing director. I'm sure he's on a lot of people's like top 5 of best directors of all time kind of thing. So I'm not like, what he's forgotten about filmmaking is more than I would ever learn.
I would like to know like what was in the garbage can, and I would just string that together and it would make me the greatest director I could ever possibly be. You know what I mean? Like just the cutting room floor, just pick it all up. I mean, it is interesting. He's made, at least 3 war movies. I mean, you could clump Spartacus in there. You can go back, I mean, even as far as stuff as like Fear and Desire, which is probably so Fear and Desire, Doctor Strangelove, you got Full Metal Jacket, you got Paths of Glory. They're all in that same kind of anti-war vibe. And because, I mean, I read a quote where it basically was like, the only thing that Kubrick talks more about than sex is war. Like it's in some context in a lot of his films. He was very passionate about like war being ridiculous. And he talked actually about filmmaking when it comes to like a battle scene or like, showing a war or whatever. He's like, you can kind of get, and I'm going to paraphrase here. He's like, you can kind of get to like the core of what humanity is in those types of extreme situations where if you didn't have a war or something, you got to try and get there artificially, but you put people in like a warfare situation. He's like, now all of a sudden you can have, because he doesn't, Kubrick didn't have a lot of, hope for humanity in general. So war allows him to show that in a very quick way. Like, oh, person's in a battle, now they're doing crazy shit, now they're like, killing people, they're fucked. Because at their core, people are fucked. That was essentially what Kubrick, thought, right? So that's why he uses war a lot as well, right? So,
well, I think even the second to last scene where I'm assuming they kidnapped a German woman.
I'm assuming so. Yeah, because they're just like, does he say he like found her or something?
Yeah, and then he was like, she has the talents, and she's like crying her ass off. Who eventually became Kubrick's 3rd wife.
That's right, and that was the last wife. That's the one that was with him until he died in 1999.
1999. But like having that, because to me that was the one scene that just seemed like, here's the genesis, like here's the story of the movie, here it is, and it just literally just panned. And tell me if this is why it was done, is pretty much saying like, out of the 3 guys that actually got killed, if they didn't get killed, they would have been in this room too, humming and hawing at a woman that was most likely been kidnapped and raped by every single one of these guys.
So that's what he's talking
about. They're
not
actually the good. They're actually not good guys.
Right? None of them are good. But also, if you play that scene out, they're also he shows that savageness, right? Like, and he uses some like, you know, Dutch angles and close-ups, and they're like screaming for her and stuff like that. And then as she starts singing, and then they start humming along with her, and then that kind of brings the humanity back into them, right? Like that. And so there's that line out of Full Metal Jacket, like, you have a peace symbol and you have kill on your uniform. What does that mean, son? He's like, it's a Jungian thing, the duality of man. He's like, what? The duality of man, right? That's Private Joker or whatever. It's like, you want to get on board and get with the winning team and come in for the touchdown. You know, Kubrick is playing with that. It's like, war makes you can make you horrible. You can still have humanity in war. Like, he's trying to have these like multi-level conversations all within a couple scenes. You know what I mean?
Okay, I just thought it was like she was singing a happy birthday song, give or take. And she's just saying it in German, and they're like, by the tune and stuff, they're finally cluing in on the song. Like, maybe it was like ABBA Gold, I don't know, like Mamma Mia, and they're like, fuck, okay, now I knew it. And that's why they're like
singing along. I think it was to show that even these like hardened men at their core had some humanity, which again, like I said, he talks about like the futility of war, right? Like, and how ridiculous it is. I mean, I love Kirk Douglas in this role. You know, he's got 3 Oscar nods: Champion, The Bad and the Beautiful, Lust for Life. I love him as Spartacus. Like, that was one of the movies that like my grandpa would put on for me and be like, yo, just watch this old movie. Sort of like the 10 Commandments, like, I'm Spartacus. It's so fun. I mean, obviously he's Michael Douglas's father. This guy, so he was born in like 1915 or something like that. December 9th. He has the same birthday as me. He died in 2020 at age 103 after having a stroke at 79. Like, this man lived forever. That's a long fucking time to be alive, man. He also served in the Second World War in the Navy, just like me, but not in the Second World War.
I was gonna say, like,
I told you, man.
Dating yourself, eh?
I'm looking good. I mean, this film is considered a classic. It's got a 95 critics rating. It's got a 95 from the audience. It's in a sweet spot. It's 88 minutes long, so not quite an hour and a half. They made it for $900,000. I think they made like $1 million off it, or their budget was $1 million and they made $900,000. And I think I read somewhere that a third of the budget went to Kirk Douglas's salary. But without Kirk Douglas, they wouldn't have gotten it made because it was his production company that took it on board.
Yeah, from what I read as well, like, they knew from the beginning this film wasn't going to make money at the box office, but they made sure that he got paid I think his salary was $1 million, so which would have been $9 million or something like that.
That's so crazy. Like, your whole budget went to one person.
Yeah. But it would have been better if it was like, you know, like a Terminator 2 scenario or a Road Warrior scenario where he only had like 10 lines the whole movie. Yes. that would have made it better. But the thing that, now, has this movie, I didn't look into it, but I'm assuming you'll tell me, has this ever been remade?
I don't think
I'm surprised, like, looking at it, I'm surprised it hasn't, like, especially with special effects now and everything like that, have been remade into a movie now.
They made 1917.
Yeah,
which is just like one long tracking shot. So
yeah, but that movie is totally different, right?
Yes, it's I was making a joke there. I mean, Robert Zemeckis pays homage to it in 1991 Tales from the Crypt episode Yellow. He also cast Kirk Douglas and his late son Eric, who passed away from a drug overdose, as in a father and son role. It also has Dan Aykroyd in it, and basically it's that, like, it's the same type of thing. Like, they're doing a little vignette of Paths of Glory on Tales from the Crypt, which you can see if you can look it up on YouTube. It's pretty good.
All right.
So it's like an homage or a homage, whatever.
Homage. I don't know, with my nativity. I don't know how to say that. Is there anything else you want to say about this film? Yeah, I'm gonna have you stop fucking picking war movies on Remembrance Day, because you are 0 for 2.
What do you mean?
Right? like
How am I
last
0 for
year's
2?
movie with
Gallipoli.
last year's movie with
Gallipoli. Gallipoli, yeah.
That movie was like, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, boring as shit.
So
This
I
movie,
feel like your understanding of the First World War is much different than my understanding of the First World War.
Listen, next year I'm picking the movie. We're picking Wonder Woman, and it's gonna be like fucking kick ass.
Okay. Anyway, I think this is a super somber movie. I would put it up there with All Quiet on the Western Front or any of the other anti-war films. I mean, we could do stuff like Platoon and stuff, which also is an anti-war film. We could even do Good Morning Vietnam if you really want to, be more entertained. I'm sorry that our somber film about like an important piece of history didn't entertain you.
But entertainment. This is supposed to entertain people, not fucking depress them while they're listening.
Fair enough.
Be like, hey, I get it. But,
so hopefully you're listening to this.
and you could say there's a magic lasso that fucking whips a guy around.
And some killer boots. Anyway, all I'm going to say is, if you're listening to this at 6 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, take yourself to a cenotaph if you're here in Canada, and if not, whatever your Memorial Day is for your service people. Sorry, and that's all I got.
And that is our rant for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. If you're looking to get a hold of us, please go to our website at howdyoulikethatmovie.com. All our social media links are there, and you can email us as well. I'll say this, and you can keep this as the end credit for the show.
Okay, go.
Congratulations. You went a whole episode without mentioning Tarantino, Burton, or Nolan.
Wait, but we didn't talk about Tarantino's new project with Tim Burton that's going to be produced by Christopher Nolan, so...
That's the thing. You can keep that as the end credit. Like, he went a whole episode without doing it, or a Top Gun reference.
It's a Nightmare Before Reservoir Dogs, starring Tom Cruise as Maverick. Hey! Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.